Hey guys, this is Kyle from Narrative. I'm here with Alisha Tova today. She's an amazing photographer out of Chicago, here actually just down the street from me. How you doing today, Alisha?
I'm good. How are you, Kyle?
So good. I feel like we've been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and so it's cool that it's finally coming together.
It's been a while. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy to talk to you. And I used to have a podcast, so it's flexing my interviewee interview muscles
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Well, you're really busy right now too. It's July, and you have a bunch of associates too as well, right?
Yeah, I have three associates, and then a few people that are kind of in and out of helping me. But we have a team. There's a lot of weddings happening.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. How many weddings are coming through your brand this year?
We'll do about 50 this year, and I think we did about 55 to 60 last year.
Oh man, that's so much.
I know.
Well, before we dive too deep into it, I've got just some questions to throw out at the top of
Okay.
this conversation, and we can get into some stuff. So,
Okay.
first one being, what is your proudest moment in your career thus far?
So I thought about this question. Disclaimer: you sent me these questions just prior, and
No, they were just on the spot now.
they
It's
were
all a
just on the spot
surprise.
now. But I'm really not good at talking off the cuff, so I'm happy to prep it. And the question after is, what's your worst business decision? And I feel like my best, my proudest moment and my worst decision, they kind of coincide with one another. So my proudest moment, I think, was when I signed a lease on my studio space in Wicker Park. I had wanted a studio for so long. I felt like up until that point, I was always working from my house or coffee shops, and I never felt grounded in my company and my brand. And it always felt so unattainable to have an additional rent to pay every month. And as we grew and as studio inquiries were coming in, and I just felt like that's the natural next step. And it was such a leap and it was so scary to do. But once I signed the lease and I got in the space and people were booking me for family shoots and studio shoots, it just, and I could put like a different address than my home address on my company papers. I mean, how great is that to separate it? So I think that was my proudest moment. But to tie that in with my worst business decision, you forget as business owners, like there's so many back end things that you need to tie together to make sure that you're not really messing up in big ways. And I definitely made a huge mistake in one, signing my personal name to my business lease, which is for anyone who is having a studio, I really encourage you guys to always have your business LLC protecting you. And that's what it's there for. And then B, just not getting around to having business insurance right away. And I know that it's embarrassing, honestly, for me to say, because like I said, I'm a business owner, I'm successful, we do 50 weddings a year, but we're artists and we're creative thinkers and we're not like tie every knot, put every button on. And there was an incident that happened at the studio last year. I wasn't present for it, but I can't really talk about it too much, but there's been a legal situation involved ever since. So to say that that was my worst business decision of just not protecting myself fully is a little bit of an understatement, but I've learned so much from it. And it's been, yeah, you can only grow from those types of things, but yeah, they definitely coincide with one another,
Yeah,
blessing and a curse.
I think it's, as long as it obviously doesn't destroy your life or your business or your finances, I think that every photographer has to have that one big,
Yeah.
oh shit, learning experience.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I lost 900 images years and years and years and years ago with a
Mhm.
business partner. And by I mean it was him and not me, but it was my business now, so it's mine. And that happened. And I'm kind of glad it did. The way it happened, it didn't end things. It was a second shooter, so it wasn't like a crazy big deal. But
Mhm.
now I have that in the back of my mind at all times. Like, how
Yeah.
can I foolproof this? And
Yep.
so you'll have that now. And it could have been that, or it could have been a break into your car on a wedding day and you lose your
Yep.
gear. Like, there's just so many different versions of it where you go,
100%.
okay, I'm totally on top of it now. I won't let
Yes.
this kind of thing happen again.
Yes. And other people are relying on you so much, like you said, with camera equipment and file imagery. And you really, I think because it was my studio and it was just someone renting on Peer Space and what's the big deal? I felt like it always fell by the wayside. And you just never know. It's every little corner that you touch is vulnerable and you just have to be on top of it. So,
Yeah. Well, that's so amazing that you're able to have a space and have that sectioned off. I totally understand
yeah.
the idea of like where my laptop goes is where my business goes versus
Yes.
having a physical place.
Yep.
And it's not too dissimilar to maybe the first time you set up a business email. You went, oh, it's all
Hmm.
over there now. That's really nice.
That's
So
so
it's so cool.
true.
And your studio is beautiful. I've shot in it and it's
Thank
lovely and
you.
it's such a great spot in town. So,
Thank you.
what's been your best business decision?
I think my best business decision was there might be two in there. I think one was moving from New York to Chicago. I moved to Chicago about 6 years ago, and I had always said, I'd love to be in a big fish, be a big fish in a small pond, and that's exactly what I felt like Chicago brought to me. I feel like I really am more of a community leader out here, and my work is being highlighted, and I'm making connections with people that is just harder to do in New York when it's a huge city and expensive and competitive, and the venues are all really hard to shoot in. And I think, yeah, it really kind of propelled me forward. And it was one of those really tough and stressful decisions in the moment. But looking back on it, I think it was the best thing I could have done. And I think my second, like best business decision was once I decided to bring my first associate on. Her name is Momoko Fritz. She's amazing. Um, we kind of took a leap with that, and it's really paid off financially, emotionally. It's been great for my business, and it's been a good challenge for me of growing and scaling in a moment where I was feeling kind of stagnant and like, where do I go from here?
Oh, that's so awesome. I have gone the other way. I had the team, I
Mm.
had people, and then I slowly fired or killed all of them, and now it's just me. And the idea of going backwards to that, where I'm
Yeah.
managing people, I think it would be different now because at the time I did it
Hmm.
where we were all shareholders and equal people, and that's a lot different than like a top of head, and then everyone
Hmm.
else runs things. But it sounds so overwhelming. And so when I hear that people have two or three, or you're running 50 or 60 weddings a year under that, I'm tired for you and also really jealous that I'm sure someone handles your emails now. This was a chat with Chris and Ruth recently. They're like, you've got to get an assistant.
Hmm.
And that's just so cool.
Hmm.
Um, what is the camera that you're carrying most these days, whether it be for work or personal?
It's such a juggle. I am between three cameras right now, so I'll just say all three because I use them pretty equally. For digital, it's always been my tried and true Canon 5D. Mark IV, it was the Mark III. I've That's pretty much been my only digital camera that I've stuck with. I do have the mirrorless R5 and I try to use it because I paid a lot of money for it, and but I don't know why I still just love the Mark IV a lot. And then my two film cameras that I use mostly is my Minolta 645. It's an autofocus medium format camera. It's really beautiful, and it's really changed a lot of my look of wedding photography. I don't use it a ton on each day, but I think it's quickly become my favorite camera. And then my other one, which I carry in my purse or on me at all times, is my Contax T3. It's just my little point and shoot. I love
Oh
it.
man,
Honestly,
very jealous for
my
the
wedding,
T3.
yeah, my wedding clients love it. Like, it's such a simple little camera, but it just gives that perfect film effect that everyone wants. So it just feels like my secret weapon a lot of
Have
times.
you had the T3 for a long time, or is it a recent thing?
No, I've had it for about 3 years now, but I
Oh, cool.
really started using it more and more. I think I was still, I don't know, maybe nervous that people weren't going to like the look of it or that the images weren't going to come out. But now that I've become so comfortable with it, I bring it everywhere with
Yeah.
me. It's like,
I always eyeball them because as much as everyone
mhm,
likes the T2, the T3 is sick. It's
yeah,
so small. It's such a compact little guy,
yeah.
but they're so expensive now. I've got a friend that just bought one last week for like 1800 US,
Oh
and
my God.
I have like a mini Lux, which I really love,
Hmm.
but when I bought it, it was like $400, which was a lot at the time,
Wow.
and now they're like $1,400, and I feel really hard to pull it out of the house. I feel like I'm going to break it, and I'm supposed to
Hmm.
take care of it or something, and
Mm.
so I kind of want to find one of these little Olympus cheapos, just
Yeah.
because I want to be able to just throw it around and do stuff with it and not coddle it. But
Yeah.
the T3 is so cool, and Oh, it's pulled at me a few times. It's such a great little camera.
It's you gave me a reminder of to not throw my T3 around. I think because it's so vintage and old looking and I it's been a while since I bought it. I feel like I don't take as good of care of it as I should. So good reminder to be careful with that beautiful camera of mine.
And it makes sense that you're still rocking the Mark IV. I am still on Nikon D750s.
Okay.
I've had them CLA'd every year. The shutters have been replaced. Like there's been so much like overhaul every year from Nikon, and
Mm,
I could flip to mirrorless, and I know everyone's done it, but I just don't think there's a photo that I'm going to get with one camera and not the other. And they've been
yeah.
such great workhorses that they truly are just in my box, and
Mm,
they're only come out when it's like I'm going to make money today.
wow. Yeah.
They're very much tools, but I don't feel the need to go to mirrorless. And I think if I even had it on hand, I'd still probably just lean back into my tried and true. That's what's done everything for me. What's going to change?
I know that's the problem is sometimes I'll try to do, you know, a two camera setup on a wedding day once in a while if it's a certain type of wedding. And I'm always reaching for my Mark IV and I have to remind myself like the mirrorless is right there. Use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to do little things where like maybe I'll do the D750 and then I have a couple different Leicas. So maybe I'll do like a Leica
Mm,
Q2 and I've tried to like mix it up or change it up, but the D750s are like two perfect hammers and they're just perfect for everything I do, and it just seems
yep.
silly to try to change.
Hmm.
Um Last question being, what's your problem?
My problem, I think this is maybe a common problem with people who have been in the industry a little bit longer. I'm hitting 9 years of photographing weddings, which is very crazy to think about. But my steam is just, it's not where it used to be. And I think
Mm,
I had such a zest for growing and getting clients and getting the coolest weddings and working all the time. And I think my problem right now is like, you know, I've done all of that and now I have this steady flow of bookings year after year. And it's like, it's less of how do I scale and more of like, how do I just keep growing and learning from a mental standpoint?
yeah,
And how do I serve my community and how do I serve the new younger photographers that are coming up? And I know that people like Sam Blake and Shalise Michael and Chaz Cruz, like they were such an integral part of my growth. And how do I start to become that for other people and in ways that doesn't take advantage of my time or, you know, to have it be really part of my education and
yeah.
platform.
Do you feel that that shows up at all when you show up on a Saturday, or when you wake up in the morning on a Saturday for a wedding? Do you feel that in the morning, or when
Mm,
you're at the wedding or shooting or dealing with certain situations that, like for me at least, I have felt that I've been full time for 10 years or
yeah.
so, and I would be lying if I didn't say like every Saturday morning since the history of time I've woken up and went, man, I'd love to not do this today. But that feeling has grown further to like when I actually get to the wedding, I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I'd much rather be on my bike today with my friends. And so that thought started pulling me away
Mm,
towards newer endeavors rather than weddings being focused.
yeah.
But I'd be interested if any of that like has played its role on the actual days.
Yeah, I mean, as I get older, of course, like weekends feel more precious to me than they did when I was in my 20s. I'm 33 and, you know, I have a relationship and he works on the weekdays and then, you know, we don't have much time on the weekends and my nieces and nephews are in school and their only free time is on the weekends. You know, you feel like you're always pulling against everyone else's schedule. And
Yeah.
I think, like I said, when I was younger, it was always the mentality to hustle and work. And now that I'm in my 30s, it would be really nice to have just a few more freed up weekends. And I've done a good job at that this year for myself. I think that's the one really nice thing about having associates is like
Yeah.
there's this weird feeling of you can personally say no to a wedding, but you can have someone else work it that weekend and know that you're passively making a little bit of money, not as much as if you were shooting it yourself, but there's some type of work and income coming in and you don't need to be so physically present. I think that's the hard thing with weddings is they're long days. You know, even if you start at 1:30 p.m., you're really starting in the morning. You have to make sure your kit is ready. You need to make sure you have a nutritious breakfast. I want to I memorize all the family names before. That's always been my thing.
Oh
I always
wow.
want to know like parent and sibling names. So I just meditate on their questionnaire and their family lists and things like that. So it's really an all encompassing day for me.
Yeah, it's a big high energy day. And it's
Yeah.
my experience has been, I'm not really good with tasks. Tasks are something I've only recently figured out via ADHD and medication and journaling.
Yeah.
But calendars have always been a lock because
Hmm.
weddings are 12 months out. I know exactly what I'm doing next week and 12
Yes.
months out. And it's this like thing that just kind of sits in your calendar and hovers. And through my 20s, there were so many
Mm,
experiences, so many plans, so many Lollapaloozas that I was like, nope, I'm sorry. I'm out of town. I can't. And
mm,
even this year, I have such a small amount, purposefully so, and I
mhm.
still got invited to be a plus one at a wedding by my best friend, which is the dream. I never get to
Yeah.
go to a wedding, and of course, it lands on a wedding day I have, and of course, it's a wedding that it's a friend, I cut a deal, all the things.
Yeah.
It's always that situation. So it's hard, and I'm the same age as you are, and so I
Hmm.
think those Saturdays, the ones that I'm off and I'm out here in the city riding around, and I see a wedding happening,
Uh,
I can't help but feel, oh, I'm
yeah.
so glad I'm not doing that right now.
It's like a reaction when I see that
It's
photographer in their black
amazing.
outfit with their straps on, and I'm just like, so happy that's not me
It
today.
has the same sensation as when you get like bumped to first class and you're like, oh, I'm in first. You're back there.
Yeah.
I'm in first class now. Have fun shooting that wedding, sucker. I'm going to ride my bike.
100%. I will say though, I guess the only difference, like you said, when you're even shooting the wedding, you maybe feel that way. For me, I do feel that once I'm engulfed in like the couple's lives and family and people, like time stands still a little bit for me. I
That's
get
for
into
sure.
this like really kind of like intense presence with whatever I'm doing there. And I think for me, photography's always been about a deep presence around people. So it's again kind of a blessing and a curse though, because it's like I'm so engulfed that I forget about my life for a moment. Yeah. And then I come out of it and I'm like, okay, back to my
Yeah.
reality. So
That's kind of amazing though, because and I'm sure you've met them too. Throughout my career, I've met that old guy, and he's like, I used to shoot weddings. I'd never do it again. They're the worst. And I just kind of hate that person that really
yeah.
shits on wedding photography because A, it's hard. It's the boot camp of how to be a photographer, and I stand by that. And
Yep.
B, it's a really hard gig, and I never want to be that person. I don't want to find myself like on the exit out of this career going,
Mm,
oh, I'd never do that again. I hate this gig, because that's not true. I love and loved it for so long,
yeah.
and I just want to gracefully leave it and go, cool, this is for the value of my clients and my own time. It's
Yeah.
not, if I'm showing up to a day and not wanting to be there, that's just at the top of it. It's just not good for them. And then it's totally not respecting my own boundaries and desires for
Absolutely.
life either.
And let's hand this down to people who are like young and hungry and physically capable of doing it for a whole day. I've definitely felt myself, needing double the recovery time after wedding days.
The wedding
Fine.
hangover is and always will be real. That next
Yeah.
morning, everything is, I just got hit by a Mack truck. I'm
Yes.
tired. You mentioned wanting to pass down, knowledge to newer, younger, and hungrier
Mhm.
photographers, which I think is huge and not talked about enough in this space. Like,
Mm.
so many people gave me their time to sit in a studio at 2 a.m. with my laptop and
Mm.
arguably really bad photos and just look at them with me and tell me what was bad and then
Yeah.
help me grow.
Yeah.
Are your associate shooters, are they people who have had a business for a while, or they're just trying to learn
Mm.
things? Has that been a relationship where you've gifted them the opportunity of all this experience to, of course, run off and take on their own at some point?
Yeah. I think it's definitely been, I mean, they'd have to, I don't want to speak for them, but I do think it's been an amazing experience for them. And I think the main thing I've heard from people who want to work with me is, you get such amazing clients and it seems like they really allow you to use your art in a way that's unique and cool and special. And how do you get those clients? And through me seeing their potential, their previous work, their determination, their organization, their competence level, if I feel like they have what it takes to kind of get to that point, then it's been really rewarding putting in my time and helping them grow as photographers, because there's a lot of things that people maybe either skip steps on or don't even realize little micro things are really pivotal and important to grow your work and to eventually land the clients, the type of clients that I get.
Yeah, I think it's a position of always learning. I think just even a couple years ago, I photographed with Kristen Parker, and there
Mm,
was like three or four things I grabbed, and I went, "Whoa, why have I not been doing that for all
yeah.
this time?" And vice versa. Like I'm photographing with Katie Carl this weekend,
Oh,
and
fun.
her and I are really good friends, and I just like information knowledge dump whenever I
Hmm.
can, or whenever she'll allow it. And even then, she has such a massively successful business, but there's
Hmm.
so many little things she goes, "Oh, I never thought of that." And
Hmm.
I think that everybody can always be learning in that space. So whether you're
Yeah.
an associate coming in new and you're fresh, or you're you or you're me, there's just so much to keep pulling in.
Yeah.
Is there spaces that you're trying to educate or learn more this year as you
Mm.
struggle with figuring out how you're feeling about energy and having the zest for it?
I think I always am trying to learn like a deeper sense of curation and imagery from myself. I obviously always want to keep evolving my art and making it better and keeping it interesting. So I think, if you're an artist and you think that you've, like you said, learned everything or kind of have it figured out, then I think you need a little bit of a reality check. So for me, it's just about continuing to strengthen my work, learn a little bit more of the film photography aspect of weddings. I think that's been a really big like invigoration for me coming into weddings and just incorporating more film, because that's how I started photography and I kind of lost it once I started shooting so many weddings. So that's something I want to be learning. And I think also just learning like deeper, maybe more long term business strategies and business practices. A lot of my life is like shooting this to editing it to finishing it. And I have really missed a project that takes, maybe 3 months or 4 months to do. And you dive into it and you learn about it and you keep it secretive. And then you are able to like proudly present it, whether that's, a course or a preset package or, um, a training session pamphlet, something like that. Like I've just never, I haven't done like a long term project in a while, and I'm kind of eager for that.
Ooh, we have very similar wavelengths of things going on. I feel
Mm,
like I have been doing I do these portrait sessions on the side, and they're mostly
mhm.
just for fun. They're me just needing to like go photograph something in an
Yeah.
effort to be a normal person. I still have this pull of creativity, despite
Hmm.
never really feeling like a artist per se.
Hmm.
And they just always turn into like a wedding kind of session where I photograph a bunch of images. Now I've given myself the responsibility of delivering 130 of them and then
Hmm.
putting them into a gallery and then sending them off. And
Mm.
because there's no money attached, it makes it even harder to get to sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I've been shifting and saying, what if I just took 5 pictures? Like I might take a bunch, but I want 5 really great photos out of this
Yes.
thing. And then to build a series or individual pieces of art that might turn into ad agency stuff or an
Yeah.
art show or an exhibition or a series or something that's a little more long form
Yeah.
and doesn't require me to create this false responsibility of here's
Yeah.
150 photos, model person, that you can
Yes.
have now. I sat on them all day.
Yeah. Well, and everyone wants a quick fix these days. Like the longest term project anyone does is setting up their carousel for Instagram. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you multiply that times 100, maybe there's potential to do something a little bit more meaningful and robust with it. And obviously, keeping up on your portfolio on social media is important. But again, it's the like, I've been there, done that problem for me right now. I'm not a young newcomer anymore. So I just need to find ways to really feel full from this job
Yeah.
and this
I'm
career.
I'm seeking the lack of winging. So like
Hmm.
when I photograph weddings, I'm a wingeter. I'm a professional wingeter. I can guide the
Hmm.
client and the weather and the day and the plans and the planner and everything the way I want, but ultimately if it rains and the church is closed and this and that, I have to wing it.
Yeah.
And so many of my creative sessions have been that too. I have
Mm.
a general idea of what the look of my work is like, but for the most
Yeah.
part, we're winging it.
Yeah.
And it's been a really long time since I said, what if I tried? What if I
Yeah.
gave a shit about every single tiny piece of this to then
Yes.
have an end result that was dictated only by me? And that I'm hoping will
Hmm.
reinvigorate this like excitement and zest for like, oh my gosh, I really poured a lot of myself into this, not an
Yes.
hour of my time.
100%. I think my best work is when I feel as though I have a deep sense of duty to really provide my point of view to a client. And when I can tap
Yeah.
into that, then my work is, it shows.
Yeah. You mentioned that you want to get better about image curation.
Mm,
And I think it's a funny spot to be in where right now we can photograph a bazillion things and there's a couple
mhm.
of AI software pieces that'll do it for us rather than with us.
Yeah.
And then there's film, which is going to slow it way down to really precision imagery. What does that look like for you in terms of, like one of my beefs with AI software outside of Select is that photos, the idea that what is a good or a bad photo is not binary, it's very subjective,
Hmm.
and it has to be decided by a lot of factors, and
Hmm.
film is included within that space too, because sometimes the imperfections are beautiful.
Yeah.
And so what does that curation process look like now for you as you're
Hmm.
adding associates, trying to change the direction in which you feel invigorated by your work, and also
Yeah.
just being a major part of the local and bigger community?
Yeah. I think for me, it's a lot about not the single image, but like the piece as a whole. Like it is a piece of art. It's a collection when you're sending out a wedding album. And I think what I saw with a lot of newer photographers is they focus so much on the things that they want to focus on. And then you feel like so much of the day was lost. And it's been interesting for me to be culling and editing other people's work because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, but where were people, like, weren't people hugging after the ceremony? Like, where is that? And just there's things that in your art you want to feel. And it's been really fun for me to help guide especially my associates as to why we're doing this. And I think with a lot of the curation aspect of it and with AI and all of that, like it takes the it takes the humanity and the why and the emotion part out of it, and it feels so technical. And I've never been a technical person. Like I had said to you, I have a simple camera setup right now. I
I think that shows in your work too, by the way. I think
Oh,
that I have always felt a very technical photographer. And so when people are like, how are you inspired by this? I wasn't. I saw light and it hit concrete and then it hit my sensor. And so
yeah.
everything's very Stanley Kubrickian throughout my work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know how to just be an artist. And I feel like your work leans on like it's so much more emotional. It's so much more artistic.
Yes.
Mine feels like scenes from a movie. Yours feels like scenes from a novel. Like it feels so different.
Oh wow. But I think both are beautiful. And I've just learned to know what I'm good at. Like I'm never going to be a sensor junkie. Like I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to know what these megapixels mean on this camera. Like that's to me that's never felt important to the art of photography for me. I think everyone's artistry is so different. And yeah, I've really just taken a lot of interest in how a photo makes you feel. And so I think with AI and curation, I love curating because I think it's such an important phase of your art. And so to have someone else or like something else do that for me just feels like I'm not giving it my full attention.
Yeah. You're calling all of your associates work through for your studio?
Yeah, they'll do a light call, like a light pass through, and then I'll do it. I know it sounds daunting, but what I will say is that we've also trained, or I've trained them to really not overshoot and to kind of shoot like a film photographer, even when you're shooting digital. So we shoot on average, we could shoot anywhere from like 1900 to max like 3200 images for a wedding. Nothing really over that though.
Okay.
So it feels at times daunting for sure, but we pretty much every year have kept the month to 6 week turnaround time for wedding
Wow.
delivery. So
Wow. That's an incredible turnaround too. I mean, you've obviously got a pretty good workflow going on.
yeah,
And I know you're a Select user, so it's not like I have to like
yes,
inquire into that space. But I had, I've been a photo mechanic user up until really
Yeah.
this position, to be honest. I was using Publish prior to that. That's my exposure to narrative. And Photo Mechanic just worked great for the way that I wanted to push through things.
Hmm.
And then I played around with the other ones where I said, okay, maybe it'd be neat if I punched images in and I got a return of all purple images are blurry, eyes closed, underexposed, whatever. But I never found a good connect to that. And even now, as I work through a gallery and select, I actually still look at every single image. I can't. I know First Pass is amazing. I'm on a narrative podcast, but
Yeah.
I still personally like to look and put my eyeballs on everyone. Are
Mm.
you doing that with having so many associates, or are you leaning on the trust of the process or the trust of the programming?
I'm not leaning on the trust of the programming, but I am trying for the most part not to go individually and rather use my monitor, have, maybe 4 images across on like a pretty large
Mm,
grid, and then just passing that way and kind of pretty like, without much care, just pressing the T select button on like anything that I think
yeah.
is usable. But I will say for the family portraits and portraits where there's multiple people, I mean, those I select when I zoom in, it makes family portraits go by so much
So
faster. And
cool.
I mean, I know we are on a narrative conversation
Yeah.
but I will say, like, I mean, that honestly was like another proud moment of my career is once I started building relationships with companies like Narrative and PickTime and Flowdesk, because I really believe in their product and it really has helped me actually grow my business and grow my workflows. I mean, they're absolutely integral to my
Yeah.
day-to-day use. So, I love, I guess, to even just note like some of the photography products that I'm like most gung-ho on. It would be Narrative for culling, it would be PickTime for gallery selection. I've always been a Flow Themes user. I was like, I think one of their first clients. So I've had many
Yeah.
iterations of Flow Themes. And then let's see, there's another one that I feel like I'm forgetting and I want to give a shout out to. I use Flowdesk for email mailers. Oh, and then Honeybook. I use Honeybook,
Yeah.
and I was also one of their first like people to have. And so I have the forever, I paid $400 initiation fee and I haven't needed to pay anything
Oh,
since
wow.
then.
That's nice.
So it's and I'm not just like giving them the note, but that it just shows I've been with them from the beginning and I've
Yeah.
enjoyed their product through every iteration of them growing. And so yeah, I love my photo
And
software
I feel like
world.
all those products too, their CEOs or people within it have been part of our space. Like
Yes.
I've had drinks with Ross from Flow Themes, and I
Yes.
obviously work for James from Narrative. And
Yep.
there were these when I first started, I was using ShootQ, and then suddenly Honeybook, Dubsado, Tave, Studio
Yep.
Ninja, 17 Hats, all these other platforms came out by people like us who really knew the problems, and that's been
Yes.
a cool shift in things. I
Hmm.
really wish I had Narrative Select like 5 years ago when I was shooting like 40 or 50 a year.
Hmm.
Wow, when I'm just sitting in airports barely awake culling
Yeah.
through photos, that would have been really really cool. But
Yeah.
there was Photo Mechanic and Smart Previews and it worked.
Yeah.
But man, the eye focus, just to have
The eye
everybody's face
focus.
up. Tell me if 12 people's faces are in focus is
And then
just
we're good.
insane.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It is. It is. And that's as gear techie as I'll go. I'd rather have more conversations around PickTime and narrative and flow themes than I would around cameras because I think that you actually it doesn't matter as much what kind of camera you're using. It matters if you're a good photographer or not. But these programs really are, yeah, they're just so important to help you get from point A to point
Yep.
B through the
To
whole project
scale
process and to scale.
and
Yeah.
to have your clients feel
Yeah.
loved and honored and respected throughout the process too,
Yeah.
because there will just the idea of not having a client studio manager to
Yes.
manage all of that would
Yes.
be crazy.
Yes. I agree. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
What do you have coming up this year that you're stoked about or excited for? Do you have any workshops, or are you doing? You've got some. I know you're really involved in the community here. I'm self-admittedly not. I'm just like my own little satellite that floats around.
Yeah.
But what do you got going on this year?
Oh man, let's see. We have a lot of weddings. I don't know. That's a great question. That should light a fire under me to get some more community events going on. We do have a fun dinner event happening at the studio this week, actually, which I'm excited for. And I hope to do more of that stuff in the studio as well. Just getting people together in a way that feels productive and not gimmicky or not salesy. Like, I've never been interested in, like people buying a ticket and me just, providing them fluff. Like, I don't find that valuable at all. But I think if there's a way to really gather people for intentional purposes, and if it can be at the studio, even better. So yeah, hopefully just more community events, and longer term projects. That's really
Yeah,
it.
I hope so too. I think your space is so cool.
Thank you.
I'm friends with the people at Lumber Studios and South Facing
Okay.
Windows, and they obviously host these little
Yes.
pseudo networking events, and it's been cool
Yes.
because I'll tend to know somebody there, so I'll show up earlier in the day, and we'll do some
Yep.
co-working for a few hours, which is
Absolutely.
my favorite thing to do with wedding photographers. Is like, hey, we're all doing the same thing. You want to go sit at a coffee shop and have human interaction
Do
once in
the
a while?
thing. Yeah.
And then it turns into a little networking event, and if it turns into like,
Yep.
oh, a model introduction and a photo project or a future co-working buddy or a friend, like I think those things are so cool, and
Yeah.
the space that you're in is just so freaking gorgeous. I'm gonna absolutely link it in our comments of this video.
Okay,
So if you're a
cool.
Chicago-based photographer and you're looking for a really beautiful pier space
Thank
in
you.
Wicker Park, it's so perfect for just really any of your needs.
Yeah.
But that's so great. I can't wait to keep an eye on those, and I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, it's been great. I am so quiet most days when I'm editing, so this is a nice break in my day.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't said a word yet today.
I have
Do I, Milo? Oh, I say something to my dog. Okay, cool. It works. Cool.
100%. I was looking forward to this. We're recording at 1 p.m. I'm like, okay, so I'll be quiet until 1 p.m. and then I get to talk for a half hour, and then I'll be quiet again. I do have
Oh,
a
that's
shoot later
amazing.
though, so this is a good warm up for me.
Yeah, I get you just like alive and alert.
Exactly. Well, it was good to
Cool.
talk to you and hope to
Yeah,
see you around.
you as well. Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, have a good one.